Now, if you're watching this and you probably fell down the rabbit hole of comparisons where you cannot see a light out of the tunnel, I've been there, I know how it feels, and this is exactly the reason why I'm making this video. With this video, I'll finally try to end this debate between 35 and 50mm focal lengths for the majority of you, and hopefully my answer will save you tons of time. And since I really appreciate every second of your life, I will mark my conclusions down in the description below, so you can skip me talking if you want to, and I will tell you what I chose and why, but I will be very grateful if you spend some time to hear what I want to say. So yeah, let's finally get into that, and hopefully this will be the last video that you need about this topic. Hey, I assume none of you know me, my name is Lobo and I've been working as a professional photographer for several years now, covering everything from sports to private events, portraits, interiors, working with various businesses, plus I love doing street photography for myself and my social media, and every now and then I also dive into creating videos on different themes and work with many artists. For my work I shoot almost exclusively digital, but I have a big portfolio of analog cameras which I use for more personal projects, as well as a Super 8 camera for some nostalgic retro looking videos. And yeah, that's pretty much everything I have, I think. Probably have more. And yeah, I did not plan to create such a video, but recently I've been digging into this topic because I wanted to get a new prime lens, and honestly it made me go crazy. For days I kept thinking about what the right choice for me would be, and almost every day I was changing my final decision because of a big or small factors, which I'd like to discuss a bit later, and almost none of the YouTubers online were giving me the right answer. And of course, they're not me and they cannot give me the right answer, so I had to figure it out myself. At that stage I realized a few things, and it gave me the idea to make this video for all of the people out there being in the same situation, so I can save you some time, maybe hours or days or maybe even months. Personally, this is not the first time I dug deep into this topic, coming out with any real conclusions. I think it happened a couple of years ago, and then I completely gave up and stick to my zoom lenses. But yeah, I think this topic is basically a cancer for photographers. First of all, I'm sorry if I repeat things that many people said already, but I would like to go through a very quick summary for the newbies here and explain the basic differences between these two focal lengths. First, what is a focal length? It's basically the range that your lens can capture photos. After all, a lens is just an eye for the camera, and just like any eye, you have a special range on how much you can see. Now, why are we debating so much about the 35/50mm range? Because it is the most natural range for photos, since it's the closest thing to what our eyes can see. In fact, 43mm lens on a full-frame camera is apparently the range of our eye, and 43mm stands right in the middle of this range between 35 and 50mm. Everything above this or below this we can consider telephoto or wide-angle ranges. Important factor why these two ranges are such a big part of the history of photography is because they're cheap to make, as well as quite easy to make compared to other lenses in the wider spectrum. And that's how for decades these prime lenses have been part of many cameras used by professionals and amateurs, and it will probably continue to be the most famous lengths for centuries on. Most photographers and YouTubers share the same general rule of thumb about which lens is better for what, so let's quickly take a look at two graphs and see the strengths and weaknesses. Now with this graph we can take a general overview of the differences between them. This is the opinion of many people, not mine. I'm simply providing you a summary. So 35mm is wider, capturing more scenes, which is great for traveling and indoor shoot, but if you want the subject to cover most of the frame, you'd have to get a lot closer, which makes it a lot worse for portraits, because it's narrower and isolates the subject better. Plus, narrow lenses give a stronger bokeh, but the downside, it's not so great for traveling and events. Now in this graph I'm providing you a bunch of use cases and show you where each of these lenses shine more for general purpose. I want to emphasize on general purpose because as a photographer these things for me are quite subjective, And if you stick to the rule of thumb all the time, then you're gonna miss a lot of on your creativity and limit yourself, especially through the learning process. So try to see them as a guidance, not as what you should have depending on your situation. In this graph, I try to give you a 17-factor comparison, and as you can see that, as we already mentioned, for portraits and subjects, the 50mm is better, as well as having a nicer bokeh and being a cheaper lens to produce, an important factor for most of you, I believe. Both of these lenses are great for family pictures as well as low light, since the aperture matters a lot. They are always with either 1.8 or 1.4. Where 35mm shines is in street photography, as well as versatility for traveling and tighter spaces and architecture, as well as better for videos and events. But in general, if you have a studio, it will be worse, because in studios you normally shoot people and products, and the closer focal length is gonna serve you better. Now, I also added a use case creativity, which is explaining the philosophy behind wider angle lenses. When you have a wider angle, you need to pay a lot more attention to the environment and your composition, since you can capture a lot more, so it's a bit more challenging to create your subject, to create your perfect composition and frame the subject better. But this challenge could potentially make you a better photographer, and learning to compose, which is essential for any kind of work. So I'd give a point for the 35mm when it comes to creativity, and 1 point to the 50mm for being easier lens when it comes to composing and creating great shots with minimal effort. So yeah, now calculating all the points that the 50mm received, including the matching use cases, we get 10 points for the 50mm focal length. Now let's count all the points for the 35mm. Here we have 3 where it wins, and here we have 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 as well. See, every single time I get into this topic and try to find the answer to what the better lens would be, I end up exactly in the same situation, accomplishing absolutely nothing. I don't even know how I managed to create an uneven use case comparison to end up getting an even score. What? But don't worry, even if it's frustrating, the answer is very simple. I just want to cover one last thing before that, which is why most YouTube reviewers are biased and a waste of time. I don't want to offend anyone out there, especially other creators, because I learned a lot from them and I keep learning. But when it comes to this debate, I think a lot of these videos are either biased, a waste of time, or maybe both. I will try to give you a different perspective of the perspective of a content consumer, someone like me, like you right now. And I put myself in this category as well, rather than the perspective of a professional expert of masters of whatever photography. And the reason why many might be biased is because of the nature of any field of expertise. A photographer who does a lot of portraits and follows trends, or is an amateur, will almost certainly lean towards 50mm, while someone who tries to provide you some sort of alternative to this online world dominated by Nifty 50 movement, who also travels and doesn't have a studio, might tell you that the 35mm is the better lens. While the YouTubers who try to play safe and give you the expert opinion based on a bunch of nitpicking research, like how round are the bokeh balls, or whether there is 1.5% or 3% vignetting, will almost likely waste your time, because their conclusion will be that it depends on your case, even though these exact YouTubers were clickbaiting you into the belief that they have the answer for you. And this annoys me. So yeah, guess what, fellow photographers? Most of the people, including me, are sometimes sick of hearing the same conclusions that lead to nowhere. We spend hours or even days trying to resolve some inner debates and frustrations that we have in ourselves, and some of you show up as saviors almost, just to lead us nowhere. I don't get it. And I get that you're not me and I'm not you. You cannot know what suits me the best, but at least stop cherry picking your cases to fit your narrative, or stop talking for 20 minutes just to say how it depends, and say the truth to the audience. The only answer to this debate is that it doesn't matter. Yeah, it really doesn't matter. And hard to believe it, but yeah, it doesn't matter. 35 or 50, it doesn't really matter, and don't try to interrupt me and tell me but here. Like we already mentioned that 43mm is your eyesight, apparently, and then 35 and 50 are right at the edges of the normal perspective. So what are we debating? Really, like, why is this such a big deal? Yeah, I completely understand if you have like 24mm or 90mm, like the difference is huge. You can also argue that 35 and 50 are different, and they are different, but they're not really that different. So yeah, I hope you feel the same way about it now, and I hope I gave you some sort of a relief. I also hope that this will be the last video that you'll have to watch on this topic, but if you believe that you still cannot make a decision, then let me ask you this. What matters to you? People or places? If people, then 50mm. If places, then 35. Creativity, 35. Budget matters, 50. Budget doesn't matter, both of them. Everything matters to you, maybe a cheap zoom lens. Night photography and bokeh also matter to you, then probably an expensive zoom lens. Still not sure? Don't buy anything, keep your cash, and ask yourself what are you doing with your photography. Here's the thing, the most influential and special photos from the last 100 years were capturing unique events in history, moments to be remembered, faces that are not here anymore, stories that were not told. Those were the most influential pictures. The focal length only matters when it provides you an opportunity to create something that you normally cannot. But if you already have a lens that can do that, even if it's not a prime or with a great aperture, then it doesn't matter. And this is the frustrating part. Most photographers out there know these things, but somehow they don't speak about it. It's always something else they want to sell you. Buy those two lenses, get f1.2, listen to the experts. It doesn't really matter if you don't know how to compose, how to create a perfect composition or a different composition, then no camera gear will save you. Just buy whatever you want and don't really think about it. You will learn to love your lens. If you were a child and you received a camera with a random prime lens, you would be probably out there taking pictures of literally everything that you can think of. But now that you're not a child and you can afford to make a choice, you're not making any rational decisions. As Sophocles once said, whatever you do, you will regret it. Whatever you do not do, you will also regret it. And yeah, I think he's right. And now, speaking of regrets, I decided to buy the 35mm 1.4 lens. Why? Well, I realized that I want to have a prime lens which I could use a bit more for everyday photos as well as portraits, but I already have prime lenses like 90mm 2.8, and having 50mm will not make a massive difference for me. But if I actually get the 35mm, which is a bit farther than 90mm, then it will give me a bit of a different perspective. Plus I travel a lot, so it will motivate me to be a bit more creative when I don't carry a zoom lens. Also, I love the narrower looks, and if I have the 50mm, it will still keep me in the comfort zone, which I don't really want to. And I already have a 24-70mm lens, but the flexibility doesn't really teach me anything. It just makes it easier for me to capture photos. And I think I got tired of easiness, I would say. Sometimes less is more. Do I regret buying it? Yeah, because I did not really need it. Would I have regretted buying the 50mm instead? Probably. And if I didn't buy anything, probably I would have regretted it as well. So stop thinking about pointless things, just go with your intuition and make the best out of every situation. Thank you for watching, and I hope to see you in another video.